So, dead ass though.
That's your own thirst.
Look.
So Seki appreciated that stretch of episodes where Ku basically became a main character.
Yeah, I was eaten well this submission. I got not only great fights, but I also got an influx of Gilgamesh and a influx of Ku and the angles that they used for Ku. I mean, it was abs or ass or shoulders every time.
Did Seki appreciate that Gilgamesh wasn't relegated to the last 3 episodes?
Very much. Also, I will say, one of the things I liked the most about Gilgamesh here, right, is we got a lot of exposition at the end during Unlimited Blade Works, right? Mm-hmm. Like Shiro's Unlimited Blade Works, not Emiya's, but Shiro's when he first activates it. And one of the things I liked was, so Shiro was keeping up with him, and he was like, "Why the fuck you keeping up? Like, I'm the King of Kings. Like, I am Gilgamesh." And Shiro was just like, "Yeah, you've collected all these things, but you never mastered any one of them." Because, I mean, you look at someone like Ku Cullen, right? Ku Cullen has dedicated his entire life to mastering the spear, right? Like, he is a lancer. He is the master of this spear. Saber, the master of this sword. And I like that Shiro is like, yeah, no, I could not defeat, like, Saber or Ku in this same place because they have devoted their entire lives to becoming master of their craft. You're just a collector playing with toys. And because of that, you're not really any better than me. Neither of us have bothered to master even a single weapon. Just overwhelming numbers and like...
Yeah. They do a good job showing that it's entirely Gilgamesh's fault that he loses there, not that Shiro outpaced him that badly. Yeah. Like, what was it? That last scene where he could have just nuked Shiro with Enuma Elish, but that slight bit of hesitation in pulling it out, because why would he pull that out against someone like this?
Yeah.
Was enough to do him in.
The sheer, what's the word? The
ego?
Ego, was his own downfall, which is very characteristic of the Gilgamesh that's being presented here, because this is the Gilgamesh that's before Enkidu and the humbling and all that stuff in story. Like, this is cocky, asshole, terrible king Gilgamesh, who doesn't understand that what he's doing isn't, the peak of performance. And he pulls out,
his glow stick.
He pulls out his goddamn glow stick, and he's like, this was created for the King of Kings, but also you never fucking use it. How could you ever have mastered it if you never fucking use it?
Bitch calls it a sword and never uses it as a sword.
Literally! Like, that's such a good story moment, right? And it because, like, you would, at first when you look at, like, the Gate of Babylon, right, it almost seems like it invalidates a lot of the work that other servants do to develop their noble phantasms during their lives and kind of developing these powers, because look, he can just recreate the prototypes of all of them, but he can't use them to their full extent.
Bitch is just playing Pokemon looking for type weaknesses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's so cool to see in a character like Gilgamesh, Just to lay the weakness out and make it so obvious, but so simple. Like, my man exists out of time. He could train. He could learn. Does he do that? No. He's the King of Kings. He doesn't need to.
Here's the real kicker. He's had 10 years since the last Grill War. This is not him resetting from zero.
Yeah.
And he's just been, like, mostly sitting on his ass eating children.
Yeah. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, how can you be so useless? How can you be so oblivious?
Wait, children? I keep on forgetting.
This was something we got in the Fate anime. Mm-hmm. Kirei has a batch of children underneath his church.
Oh, yeah.
We saw a little bit of it in, like, one of the last 2 episodes where there's all those children in those fucking shallow, like liquid-filled coffins, like, shriveled up and dying to feed him, basically.
Yeah. But, not something that matters to this or any future Fate story, but...
But I gotta love Gilgamesh here. Like, he's such a condescending, cocky asshole, and they do so well with that.
He makes a really good villain.
He makes a really good villain, because I mean, he's just sitting there preaching about how humanity is useless, but like, this is coming from the man who's apparently not learned anything in the last decade, if not the last 6 millennia.
I've also recently found it pretty interesting that he's talking about how he wants to create a world where only the strong survive. People have to survive that Grail fire. And the one who beats him is a kid that survived a Grail fire.
Yeah.
Yeet.
I gotta say, I feel like we really got to eat well on servant personalities
Oh, yeah.
in Unlimited Blade Works, especially in the second half, because we really have all the exposition about Medea is here.
Yep.
Right? We start with episode 14, Princess of Colchis, and her arc basically goes on for another, 2-3 episodes. And we get a lot of
You get backstory and characterization of fucking Berserker.
yeah, also fucking ouch. Much like just absolutely calling her out for, wanting everything to be normal and go back to her family, even though she's the one who chopped her little brother up into pieces and threw him to her father while escaping. Ooh. Hitting where it hurts, my guy. Hitting where it hurts.
I think every servant in the series gets pretty good characterization, except for 2.
Even Saseki Kojiro. I mean, okay, Ryder doesn't.
Yeah,
because
Ryder
she's
doesn't.
dead.
Yeah, Ryder has her own story, though.
Ryder doesn't because she's dead. I will say, and now that we've done a lot of the Seki reacts, right, and now that we've had a few servants that are kind of mishmashed of things, like Ben K felt particularly applicable when hearing it from Saseki Kojiro, right, in his final fight with Artoria, and things like that. But when Saseki talks about himself, that was really awesome. Way better than obviously Stay Night 2006. But also now knowing about Ben K and combining things to form servants makes a lot more sense to me, and I get it.
This man isn't Saseki Kojiro.
No, but he's been confused and mistaken as and attributed to the point where, when he's summoned, he is Saseki Kojiro for all intents and purposes. And he possesses all the same abilities attributed to Saseki Kojiro. But it kind of sucks because that means his own identity's gone. Who was this man that, was obviously influential enough, at least somewhat, to be attributed with all these things? It's a pretty interesting question.
Or maybe he is Seki Kojiro and his name just got fucked up.
It's the rule of Ben K.
I did touch on it earlier.
Wait, oh no, you said 2 servants didn't really get a whole lot on. Who's the other one you said?
Ooh,
So it was obviously Ryder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let me go.
Because I feel like I ate pretty well on So we got development on Herc.
Yeah.
We got development on
Berserker,
Saber. We got development
Saber,
on
Archer.
Yeah.
Lancer.
Caster.
Yeah.
Obviously Assassin.
Yeah, Assassin.
I think so. In comparison, it's the assassin.
Yeah.
Oh, Saseki?
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of fair, but at the same time, because he was summoned by Medea and confined to a singular location, I didn't really have a problem with it much.
It makes a little bit of sense. He's not a proper servant here.
Yeah, I will say I would have liked a little bit of a longer fight scene between him and Saber at the end. That could have been given just that little bit more.
I think there was an extended cut. In the extended cut, they really that was a full ass obstacle.
Well, it's I think it's only a collective 5 minutes maybe in the
yeah.
anime.
In the extended cut, there's an entire ass moment where they're like, "Where the fuck is Saber?"
Yeah, no, it was a little disappointing because I feel like they could have done just a little bit more with that fight, but it was still good thematically and it fit in. So I don't really have a huge complaint about it. Watching Gilgamesh absolutely pound Herc into the ground and then Herc almost get a shot in at the very end was good.
I was excited to have you see that fight because recently in Seki Reacts, when we get to some of those uber powerful, I would like to see a fight between these two, and that feels like one of those busted combination fights.
Because, from my experience so far, Gilgamesh is, so fucking overpowered, right? He is just so far out there. So when I see, like Nobu, who has things on really old servants and stuff like that, I just want to be like, well, let's throw him up against one of the oldest characters. The oldest character in the world, if you're going by stories and myths. I mean, Gilgamesh is the first story written down.
So, this is a little thing where my campaign might be playing. Nobu's thing is actually against servants that have a lot of mystery behind what they are. But then again, Gilgamesh literally has parts of the story that are just completely fucking lost.
Yeah, like we don't have all the tablets. Most of the ones we have aren't complete.
Yeah.
So, like, technically, but yeah, no, it's just really interesting. I feel like we ate well with servant on servant battles. Shiro versus Ku was absolutely great, especially when he called Aegis.
Oh, Roias.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Roias.
Oh, what was it?
Yeah.
Because I thought he said Aegis.
No, I don't think he uses Aegis.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Roias, yeah.
I couldn't understand it.
Still, though, do you appreciate the fact that in this entire section of the anime, Ku doesn't lose one fight and he goes out on his own terms?
Yes. My man, victorious to the end. Also, it was nice seeing him just, like, absolutely scare the shit out of the little rapey bastard.
Just pokes him.
It was glorious.
Kind of sucks they had to save him.
That's why I thought it was Aegis, because it's Aeus.
Yeah.
And the way that they pronounced it in the so
dub.
I watched the sub and the dub, but the way that they pronounced it in the dub, which is the one I watched second, was not. And because he cited that it was the shield to do with like Hector and stuff like that, and I caught that reference, so I immediately thought of the Greek Aegis, and then I was like, oh, it's just a mispronunciation because Lord knows the actors are not getting these pronunciations right most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, what? Who was it? Was it? Oh yeah, it was Archer in the dub. Just goes Kuhulain.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh.
At least in the sub, you can't recognize when they're mispronouncing it horribly or if they're just throwing a Japanese accent on it.
Yeah, and like, here's the thing, right? I don't claim to be pronouncing Kukullan perfectly right, you know? I've heard people say it all sorts of ways, but nah, that's not it, fam. I might not be right, but I'm not that wrong.
Maybe you are.
I'm
Who
not.
knows?
I know I'm not.
So, Unlimited Blade Works is often called the Rin route, but a lot of people dispute it, saying it's kind of just the Shiro route. Rin doesn't get nearly as much characterization as Shiro does in this route.
I mean, Shiro gets a lot of characterization, but I feel like a massive part of that is attributed to the fact that you have the interaction between him and Emiya.
Him and Archer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Shiro and Emiya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, the reason why I call it more Rin's story is because it feels more that Rin is the main character rather than Shiro was. So,
At times, it's presented that way.
It feels like Rin is the one making a lot of the decisions and orchestrating things and making kind of like the big moves, while Shiro is along as her sidekick, but also having like a story of his own. But his story is more introspective than hers is, which is very...
It's an interesting
outward
thing what they did with Archer and Shiro, because it's both introspective while also being an external force at the same time.
Yeah. Like, I did like watching them beat each other to a fucking pulp. That was great.
Don't you ever look back at yourself and say, you're cringe, I hate you.
Yes, when I go back and read my fanfiction.net writer profile. Yeah, no, I look back at things I've done and I just go, God, I wish someone would have put me out of my fucking misery before I put that out somewhere into this world.
But then the Shiro when he was like, Drapple is a good ship and I'm not sorry.
It's not even a good ship, but I can't let it go. I can't let it go. You understand? Also, I would like to drop the comment that watching Ku and Shiro get into a pissing match over Rin was pretty fucking funny, especially at the end when he's dying and he's like, guys, summon me again when you're older. Morals ish.
Yeah.
Like morals ish. Can I say that I really liked Rin interacting with the different servants. I feel like yeah, we got a ton from Shiro because of the dynamic between Shiro and Emiya.
But Shiro doesn't feel like he always cares about how powerful these guys are.
Yeah.
It's like, I just need to win.
I feel like a lot
Rin
of
is
the time,
more...
Shiro's got like protagonist brain, where like, so what if they're more powerful than me? I have to win. Where Rin actually has, okay, I can't beat any of these in a straight one-on-one fair fight, but maybe with the right combination of allies and plan and kind of hidden things, I can come to, a draw or overcome them. And I feel like because of that, she has a lot more interesting interactions with the different characters, because she acknowledges that these people basically could all sneeze on her and wipe her out of existence. But at the same time, I feel like Emiya doesn't acknowledge that. Emiya does not acknowledge the fact that, like, Berserker could just, like, cough in his general direction.
Well, Shiro is kind of supposed to be a breakdown of the shonen protagonist.
I know.
But that's probably why he feels like, I don't care, I'm going to fight it.
Puppy. There's a puppy in the bushes there. Look
at him. I have consumed 3 pounds of really unexpectedly good-looking Japanese food, and I am going to fight God.
Yeah, yeah. But Rin had really good personal interactions with Caster and Saber, and Archer and Lancer. Like in like those 4 in specific, she had really good and kind of deep on a lot of levels interactions with all 4 of them. Mm-hmm. Especially after, Lancer allied with them and then basically was the third main character for, 3 or 4 episodes?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she took Saber on afterwards, and then still to the end was kind of, Archer was looking out for her, and she was kind of looking out for Archer too.
Because she knew, like, you feel like she knew by the point in the series where the season picks up.
Yeah.
At least had a suspicion.
Yeah, like once Archer, let his little Trojan horse come into fruition, it was obvious at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
Okay.
Oh, we probably should actually talk about the stuff that happened in Fate Zero that ends up in here.
No, because we already talked about Fate Zero.
Yeah, there's not. So this was all written first. So it's like there's stuff we could bring up thematically that came back over here, but also a lot of this is written with the intention that it wasn't like that. There's only one episode, I feel, where you're kind of supposed to have seen Fate Zero, and that's the very last one.
Yeah. It's only because we've got that huge segment in the clock tower and, interacting with people.
No, I'm just trying to figure out, like, there's still the bombs in the city. What the fuck's going to happen when they go off?
The bombs.
Oh, wait. Yeah, no, that's different lore line, I think.
Are you talking about the Greater Grail still existing, or are you talking about anything Kiritsugu? Because I don't think Kiritsugu has any bombs in the city.
Didn't he set up bombs in the city?
No.
Destroyed the... Oh. I don't remember where I read that then. I remember reading, like, he set up bombs on ley lines.
Well, first of all, if you read it, it has no bearing on what we're discussing now.
Okay.
Because we didn't read anything for this. We watched an anime.
Yeah.
In the Greater Grail, that's just not touched on in this story at all.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. I did like Medea just being like, you fuckwad, I am not doing this whole sacrificing hundreds of people.
So I mentioned that in the first section, but that entire episode is so much longer in the Blu-ray. Like, Medea gets a lot more characterization in the Blu-ray especially. Her and her master, like, both get, like, full-on extra scenes. Like, her master has this entire-ass philosophical discussion with Archer that just gets cut in the TV version.
There actually was a certain we didn't get much on Angermanyu.
He was only passingly mentioned here.
Yeah.
Like, he's not really a character. He's not a character in most Fate entries. He's just kind of a passing boogeyman.
Yeah.
Is there any story connected to him at all?
Holotoroxia gets more into it. Or you get a little bit more in the last Fate route, but we're not doing that today.
Nope. So stop bringing up shit. That goes in free thoughts, bastard. Mongrel.
Okay.
You would be Mongrel as well.
You know, before we move into my last prodding at Seki here, I'm going to prod at Seki for a different topic. You mentioned here Saber. You've mentioned her a couple times as being a little bit better fleshed out here.
Okay. Oh.
I'm not saying you like Saber now.
No, I still don't like Saber. I still think Saber's just a badly written character in this show. Honestly, like the second half of the series had more interesting things with Saber, but I gotta admit the only part about the story involving Saber that I really cared about was at the very end when she's working with Rin and then when they go to visit her grave. I gotta admit, I still didn't she still got and her fight with Saseki was pretty good, but that fight was decent in 2006 too. I have to admit that was a good fight in 2006 too, like canonically and contextually, even if the animation didn't match up at the time.
So that fight in 2006 was the same fight as in Unlimited Blade Works because that was not supposed to be in the 2006 anime.
Yes, I've heard a lot of things were not supposed to be there, but guess what? In the anime, they are, so they count. It's not the visual novel we're discussing, It's the anime.
Okay, but I don't want to hear you bitching about the non-canon filler when we do One Piece filler.
Yeah, but that's both in the book and in the anime.
Well, no, it wasn't in the root. That is non-canon Fate stuff in that old anime.
Okay, but it's canon in the anime. You know, it's not my fault that they maladapted the root.
Yes, it is. It's all your fault.
Look, you got Unlimited Blade Works because of it. Be grateful. But yeah, I still don't like Saber. She just still strikes me as a very stiff character with a stick up her ass, and I feel like even though we got a little bit more emotional stuff to do with her, it still rang somewhat hollow, and I felt like a lot of the time she still just spent her time like standing in the background, like hesitating or like not knowing what to do, you know? Whereas a lot of the other servants and characters like do shit. She spends so much time just like standing on the side, just like, oh God, what do I do? You know?
Fair enough. Yeah, I have to say fair enough. When I'm looking at Unlimited Blade Works, it wasn't her route, and you can kind of tell. I think the stuff where they do throw in characterization for, like, they mention a lot of things like the regret she has and, like, passing when trying to relate to Emiya. That kind of stuff wasn't actually in the original Unlimited Blade Works. That was added to give her characterization that they missed out on in the Stay Night anime.
But it rings hollow because she's so stiff that it doesn't feel like she's doing anything about it. If she has regrets, then she needs to act on them. She can't just sit there remembering them paralyzed, unable, like not doing anything. It doesn't make a character arc if she just sits and regrets.
That
like you gotta
is her
do something.
Though.
That's not a character arc though. That's a character, but not one that was utilized properly, which makes her not good in comparison. You know, like it's fucking Ku, right?
Yeah.
We don't get a ton about like Ku's life, right? But we do get snippets on his loyalty, how he doesn't like listening to orders, but he is a loyal dog, right? We get commentary from him about how much he values honor and stuff like that. Like we get him doing things. And by all intents and purposes, Ku is a servant that's kind of like loyal to the end, right? It's part of his character. It's part of like his story. It's part of the legend of Cuchulainn, the Hound of Ulster. If anything, King Arthur should have more autonomy to do things outside of what her master orders, because she's a character that had more autonomy even in her own legends. So why is it Ku is the one who has all the autonomy to kind of make his own choices? And I'm not saying I dislike it, but I feel like she wasn't well done anywhere that I've seen so far.
Well, Stay Night, they tried to do it, but that entire anime was not well done. Like, she does go off rushing Caster's base.
Yeah, but that whole anime was badly done. So
yeah.
it's a moot point.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Like you're like, she doesn't try to do anything.
Here's what we need. I need the agency she had in 2006 with the writing and animation quality of Unlimited Blade Works. Like minimum. Because I feel like a lot of the regrets and flashbacks were shown in both. You know? Like we had some of the same flashbacks and regrets shown in very animation quality, of course, but they were both shown, but she didn't do anything for most of this time. Like, even Shiro is more active than she is throughout most of this anime. There's a lot of scenes where you pause and she's just standing off to the side, holding her sword, doing nothing. And that doesn't feel right.
Well, when the Shiro versus Emiya fight, that was entirely a situation of, you're confronting your own demons.
Yeah, that one I can understand.
Yeah.
But it's not the only time she does it. You know?
Well,
I wanted more.
Yes, there should have been more. But I'm trying to think of the major fights where she was actually there for. They kind of write her out of a good chunk of the season.
And maybe the extended version of her fight with Sasaki would do me good because, you know, she does make her own choices during that fight. You know, she like even in the unextended version, we saw she's like, I've been doing you a disservice. But then she makes one movement. She doesn't even call out Excalibur. She makes one attack, and the fight's over, and she leaves. So like you have that 1 second of agency, like I've been doing you a disservice, and then it's over and done, and she moves on. So it feels like the only thing important she does in the entire anime is let off an Excalibur right at the end.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a little weird if you're watching Unlimited Blade Works as a standalone, unfortunately. I think that's where Fate really has failed.
Yeah.
Is it can't be watched as here's one route, another, because the foundational route, the one that is supposed to be the most well-balanced of the bunch, is shit. So you watch Unlimited Blade Works, and the stuff that's good is really good, but there are certain things in there that either feel needless or really underdeveloped. Because you just don't have that. It's not supposed to be a really balanced. It's supposed to be more of a character study of Shiro and Archer.
Yeah. But honestly, her whole character in this fucking show feels like the perks of being a wallflower. She just stands and looks pretty in the background most of the time.
Your problem is it's disappointing that she didn't actually do much.
Look, if you're...
I'm not accusing you here, but that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, no, she stands in the background. She doesn't do much. I know that Saber, Altria, Artoria, like King Arthur, Genderbend, it's supposed to be like the main... I get it. I get that she's like the thing this whole thing was built around, but it burns a little bit inside that a character as influential and expansive and action focused as King Arthur is underutilized to such an extent across multiple showings.
They keep gimping her, which is kind of weird. Like,
well,
Fate Stay Night, her master Shiro, that gimps her.
Yeah.
Unlimited Blade, her master is still Shiro, and then she gets captured by Medea for like a quarter of the show.
Yeah.
And she only gets like that last 25% to actually do shit, and they don't give her that much to do.
No. That's what I mean. I understand that she's like a love interest and a root and like the main draw for the series and female characters or like whatever. I get it. But the kind of deep inside me, I wish they'd chosen anyone but King Arthur, because I just feel like, at least for me, it creates expectation knowing that she's King Arthur that is then wholly disappointed and unfulfilled.
Here's something. In this show, up until she lets out that Excalibur, you weren't supposed to know she's King Arthur until that Excalibur is let out.
That's true. And it is at the very end. If I hadn't seen 2006 already, I might not have guessed that she's King Arthur. Mostly because I wouldn't have assumed a gender bend on somebody that important. Unfortunately, I'd already seen 2006, and there, at the very end of the first submission of 12 episodes, she screams out Excalibur against Sasaki Kojiro. Mm-hmm. So it's revealed much earlier in that anime.
There's... Shiro doesn't even find out she's King Arthur until the fucking epilogue.
Yeah, when he takes to her grave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's a transition there if we want to move out of screaming about King Arthur.
I mean, I will say, though, That's unfortunate. I feel bad that I saw 2006 first because I feel like I would have had better opinions about Saber if I hadn't found out to the final episode. Like if that had also been a reveal for me. Because it was a reveal for me when we watched 2006. I didn't know that Saber was Arthur in 2006 anime, so that was a reveal for me at the time.
But also, the anime is just kind of bad, and everything about it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and then that robs me of the reveal in this anime, which was on the whole better.
Whereas if either that anime was better and King Arthur was like that twist might have been a little bit more. Then it would have felt a little bit more satisfying with her character. Mm-hmm. And in this anime, it just meant that her character felt underutilized because that's fucking King Arthur right there.
Yeah. And I feel like that's one of those things, like, I already knew who all of the servants were in this anime going into it. And I feel like I did miss out a little bit on, like, character reveals. Like, because this goes back to part 1, but Archer's first fight with Lancer. I mean, they've got that great set of dialogue where he's like, of all the servants in the Holy Grail, I only know of one as fast as you are with as great a grasp of the lance. I name you Cuchulainn, the Hound of all. Like, that would have been a great fucking, like, reveal to see, like, not knowing. You know? Same thing with the Princess of Colchis. And a lot of the reveals in this anime were done so much better than 2006. And I do feel a little robbed that I didn't get the joy of
it's
any
unfortunate because Fate Stay Night really is the only anime where that actually matters.
Yeah.
That doesn't, for both Stay Night and Unlimited Blade Works, that doesn't matter in Zero.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter in any of the other, especially not Grand Order.
Yeah.
So character reveals in Stay Night are just, it's why the characters are called by their classes throughout Stay Night and not their names.
Yeah, and I feel like that's just a general story thing for Unlimited Blade Works. I just feel really bad that I didn't get that the announcement of who the characters were, because I think no one ever even said who Ryder was because she just ends up dead.
So that's what I kind of like about the Fate roots is you don't always find out every character in every route. Sometimes characters can remain mysteries, which logically they would in a scenario like that. You wouldn't end knowing every single character. But then you have the big dick balls out characters like Herc. Okay, you're gonna know who Herc is.
Yeah.
Once again, though, not necessarily. There's nothing in the appearance or actions of Herc that would have led me to believe it was Herc, unless I heard someone yell out the name of his noble phantasm or call his name. He doesn't look like a Hercules.
Sorry, then. It's just Cuchulainn who carries around his giant lance and wears a skin-tight leotard so you can see his balls on full display.
Okay, but even then, I wouldn't have immediately associated that appearance with Cuchulainn without, because it's not as if we know what Guybold looks like, And
Gilgamesh is probably the most easiest to notice, I think.
No, because in here, you don't see him in his golden armor. You don't see him in his Babylonian, like, Mesopotamian outfit until, like, later on, once his name has already been revealed. Actually, I think we missed it would have been nice to see when if Kiritsugu had started talking and almost revealed Gilgamesh's name, and then Gilgamesh had just showed up and, like, slammed a hand over his mouth and kept his identity secret a little longer.
You mean Kira?
Kira.
Yeah, Kira.
Kiritsugu doesn't get much to do in this anime.
Yeah.
He's kind of dead.
Yeah, but I mean, I would have liked. I actually think this would have been made just that tiny bit better if they'd held on to Gilgamesh's identity a little longer. Like, I wish they'd held on to Gilgamesh's identity until they had defeated Castor, and then Gilgamesh had emerged, and then they had figured out his name. Because there's a point after Medea's defeated that Shiro puts it together, right? He's, the oldest hero of legend, like, yada, yada, yada. But at that point, we already know because it's been said by another character.
I see what you're saying, but also I'm thinking about Gilgamesh's other appearances, and I don't know, because Gilgamesh does appear to the main characters before Castor's death in the Herc scene. Gilgamesh is kind of open to just announcing who he is, any strategy be damned.
That's true, but he didn't announce who he was when fighting Herc.
True. I think he might have said something like, I'm the king of heroes or something.
But even that could have been taken a few different ways, to be quite honest, having investigated a lot of servants now. So I think, to be honest, I think I would have liked him to maintain his anonymity just that tiny bit longer to come out in a bigger reveal. that he had been around for 10 years since the end of the previous Grail War, and that he's Gilgamesh. Especially because he never called out Gate of Babylon when he was casting it.
Again, though, that's where Stay Night would have been the more balanced route on that regard. You're going into this route, in theory, in the visual novel, knowing who Gilgamesh is, knowing who a lot of these characters are, so they're not trying to make it as big a point most of the time.
Yeah. Nah, I mean, obviously, just a personal thing. I think I would have enjoyed more if I'd actually been surprised.
I think, if I'm thinking to the visual novel, this route's big name reveal, like one you don't get in Stay Night, is Medea.
Yeah.
I don't think you find out who Medea is in the original Stay Night visual novel. Maybe the anime you do, but not in the visual novel.
Like I said, we never find out who Ryder is.
No.
So, officially, we know that Ryder is Medusa. But we don't actually find that out in Unlimited Blade Works.
No.
Which I appreciate. I appreciate the fact that there's this character who died off screen in a horrible, traumatic way, and we didn't get, a big dump about, how or why or whatever. She's just dead.
It helps the feeling that this is a battle royale, not just a Shiro tournament arc.
Yeah.
I do want to say that something about the OVA that is way too forced and just not a great ending. I feel
it's mostly a gag ending.
Yeah.
I think I preferred the ending.
The actual ending. Yeah, no, that's called the true ending. That's called the good ending. Not a bad ending, just good ending, and then the actual ending, the one that was written to be written.
Yeah. I mean, it's an OVA. It's a thing, but I much prefer the epilogue.
It's just a bit of fan service.
Also, kudos to that little El Malloy cameo.
I thought you'd appreciate when they just spent the entire episode in Clock Tower.
Yeah, and then he shows up and he's just like, that's a route that it will be hard, but I can see the value in it, and then it kind of fades out to black. I enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed the visualization of how Shiro becomes Emiya, right? Because we got a shit ton of what's essentially flashback and life story.
What did you think of Shiro's character now that we've had sort of the route that gives the biggest picture of him?
Shiro or Emiya?
The whole. They're kind of one story here.
I do like the character of Emiya a lot more following this, because I feel like I got all of the lore and backstory and development and philosophical commentary I needed to really sink my teeth into what's essentially a tortured hero protagonist.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Tortured anti-hero protagonist, driven to the absolute brink in the hopes of just making a positive difference, and then falling into utter despair and depression because, across the long years, he was never able to do what his one goal was. I appreciate that. I do love me a tortured, anti-hero. I do. And I liked the fight between the two of them, right? Because it felt very introspective. That felt like that could have been playing out inside their psyche.
That could have all just been a metaphor.
Yeah, or on a battlefield. And it was stunning to watch, but also full of a lot of kind of interpersonal struggle. I do think he copped out of not killing Shiro a little too simply. I think that could have... I understand that they still needed Archer for some stuff later in the anime, but I think it would have made more of an emotional impact if Shiro had killed Emiya at the end of that introspective fight.
Yeah.
And then, gone on from there.
So that's a criticism I've seen before, and I kind of agree on. I kind of feel like that should have been the last fight. Mm-hmm. Gilgamesh was cool. That was a really well animated fight. Really awesome action sequence.
And like I said, I love the interaction between Shiro and Gilgamesh and the whole, you're a collector but not a master, so you can never beat me because you've not mastered anything. Wonderful.
But the inclusion at the end kind of feels tacked on, and it felt like Emiya walking out of that fight in more of an acceptance. I don't mind him accepting,
but I needed him to I needed him to accept with a sword through his chest. I needed him to be like, look, well, I hesitated, and that meant my end, but I hesitated because I don't have it in me to kill you because I'm still sentimental, and then have him fade away. Not end the battle, him walk away. like sword through his chest, dissolving realization and admittance.
Like the entire Gilgamesh episode feels kind of like an epilogue to the actual story thematically being told.
Mm-hmm. And I don't mind it. I just didn't enjoy that Archer then came back to, even for a last hurrah. I feel like Archer should have been ended at the end of his fight with Shiro. Shiro should have killed Emiya. Point blank, period.
No, what I feel though...
Oh, no, go ahead, Vorn. I think Vorn might be saying something similar.
Well, here's the thing. He is still kind of needed for the rest of the story, I feel. So instead of, like... he should actually still have the sword through, like, his torso right there. He disappears, but he does the same thing that he kind of did with the, the Gilgamesh when, like, he killed Archer, technically, kind of thing. Might have actually maybe been a bit more better. I don't know.
But see, that's essentially the same thing that was as what actually happened. I don't think that he was necessary in the end. I think that you could have written another way out of that without Archer showing back up at the last minute. Easily.
But it shows the commitment to
on a
Rin,
story
though.
level, I 100% agree, actually. On a thematic level, like, Shiro killing Emiya, that's not really what Shiro does. I think even at the end, they kind of imply Shiro's going to be walking a very similar path to him anyways.
They do.
Yeah.
He doesn't really kill him, he just accepts him.
Did you watch the post-credit scene in the epilogue?
Where he's, like, walking through as just a slightly different path.
Maybe he didn't have to kill Emiya, but I didn't want Emiya to come back.
Yeah, he should have died to Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
Like, that felt like a little bit like
least.
Deus Ex Machina at the end.
Yeah, like this
when
dude
you could have
believably
believably had Shiro kill Gilgamesh at the end either way.
Yeah, like this dude gonna keep showing up again and again and again.
I do like that, like the point where like Rin does talk with like Emiya before he disappears. Though I do like that scene a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like you could have done it in a slightly. Let's say that Gilgamesh does kill him, right? Like he walks off after his fight with Shiro, and then he does get killed by Gilgamesh. Okay, have that talking interaction between her and him occur in her head as Gilgamesh kills him.
Shiro has an entire ass conversation with Archer in his head.
Have it be Emiya's parting words to his former master as he dies protecting Shiro. Thematically, that would be even more striking than what did happen.
It's just fake out deaths are never good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Luvia.
There we go. There's a character who technically gets characterization.
Yes.
Forklift girl.
Jesus, I love her. I love her so much.
I love that you forward will put an entire ass budget into her and Rin getting into a pissing match.
Yes.
Like that was unironically one of the more well animated series scenes of the show.
It was awesome.
We haven't done waifu wars. I just
No, we
realized.
haven't.
No, we
do
have
that
not.
at the end usually.
Oh
But yeah, no, you're right. That was great. I did really like the. Honestly, I wouldn't have been mad if it had just ended at the end of the final fight. But the clock tower felt like
It felt like a good send off.
It didn't feel so much like a send off, but more like a promise that their story continues. You know, like we may not get to see it in anime format. You know, but their story can. Look, shut up.
No, we haven't seen it yet in anime format. But Adventures of Lord Elmoy exists, which is a sequel to the Stay Night stuff.
Yeah, okay, but they're not the main characters.
Rin is a main character.
Oh, yes. Yay!
Anyways, but it felt like a promise that even if we don't see it in an anime, that their story continues in this world.
It doesn't just stop.
Yeah, like this is not the ending. This is just the ending of this chapter, which I liked.
I also do feel like Unlimited Blade Works at times that end does fall a little bit into Lord of the Rings syndrome, where it feels like there's like 3 or 4 different spots they could have ended it and they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, the last couple of fights were absolutely. I gotta say, you know, top. You know what? Before we do waifu wars, I'm gonna do some of my top fights of this series.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead.
So the absolute peak was Ku versus Archer.
Yeah.
Both parts combined.
Yeah.
Like that was a stunningly good fight, right? Absolutely second to that is Shiro and Gilgamesh. followed by Berserker and Gilgamesh. Only because I think that was the most realistic and interesting way to have somebody beat the absolute shit out of Berserker and actually succeed, but still create like a crack in kind of the Gilgamesh like freaking, because he almost right at the end.
That oh shit face he makes.
Just the like, oh god, I underestimated him slightly, you know? Like, and then probably besides those three, I think thematically, Saber and Saseki's fight was really nice. I would like to see the extended version of it though, because it's not officially in my top 3. I just think that thematically it's interesting.
It wasn't like suddenly extra long. It's like there might have been an extra scene of them fighting in there.
And then I gotta admit, while I liked Medea, I felt like her fight scenes were secondary to her character moments. Yeah. Like I really preferred her like flashbacks and like interactive moments to any of her actual fight scenes. Even though they're pretty cool, they're very magic-y as opposed to like physical action.
Pew, pew, pew.
So they're definitely my top 3 fights were those 3 I mentioned first.
I guess if we're doing this,
might as well.
My top fight for me is Shiro versus Archer. I just love the character. Like I love that the both. It's you can feel it's both like internal and external as a conflict. I love that dynamic. After that, it's probably Shiro v Gilgamesh, just because that fucking animation.
It's stunning.
And then it's Herc v Gilgamesh, because again, it's a very brutal fight while also being like played out the way it should.
What a way to go from one of the first episodes we watched to seeing Gilgamesh absolutely slaughter Herc while barely breaking a sweat, to one of the final episodes we watched being Shiro absolutely decimating Gilgamesh because he's too cocky and didn't learn his lesson.
Yeah. For me, it's the church fight. It's then it's Emiya and Gilgamesh. Mm-hmm. After that, it's Emiya and Archer, but specifically in the Unlimited Blade Works. Mm. And then it would probably be Gilgamesh and Berserker. Yeah.
I mean, the Gilgamesh Berserker fight was really fucking good.
Yeah. Okay, but Rin v Luvia, hear me out.
All those boobs.
All right, so butts. How about we move into waifu wars here on that note? Wars. Waifu wars. Waifu wars.
Knick-knack.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna stick with Archer.
Okay.
Mine is for Fate entirely it's Luvia, but for Servants it's Medea. I
mean, obviously it's Ku, but
I mean, who could have thunk?
But special mention to Almaloy right at the very end. High five. Special mention to Almaloy.
So when I was watching with Realm during that last episode, I specifically called out when Luvia appeared, look, it's Vorn's excuse to make Luvia his waifu again. Yeah. And then when Elmoy appeared, I was like, look, it's Seki's excuse to make Elmoy her waifu again.
Yeah, I can't even, like, it's gotta be Ku, because he just had the most amazing character in the second half, and some of the best
You didn't
fights.
Get to see Elmoy's ass nearly as much.
Nah, I didn't. But, like, honorable mention to that man. Oh. No, this was a stunningly good conclusion. You know, despite the 1 or 2 issues I may have with it, they are on the whole minor when looking at the big picture of this anime. And on a holistic level, I think this is one of the best 26 with the prologue episode series I've ever watched in its entirety. Like, it is stunningly well done, and the few complaints I have are not deal breakers or major issues.
They just might lower you from like 9 to like maybe 8. Yeah, like just one like drop.
It's a slight issues. Nothing overall.
Fair enough. Well, I think that probably concludes it for our story discussion. We'll see you back next time with Free thoughts, free discussion. We'll see what kind of fate rants they can bait out of Knick-Knack here.
Yeah.
Try harder, everyone.